Red lights painted the corridors in waves of crimson panic. Daniel Reed pressed his back against the cold metal wall as alien cadets rushed past him in every direction. Some had too many legs. Others floated on anti-gravity fields. A few moved in ways that hurt to look at directly. They all shared the same expression, though. The universal language of terror stretched across a dozen different face structures. Daniel had only arrived at Galactic Defense Academy 3 days ago. Earth's first participant in the program. Historic moment for humanity. Great honor. All that official speech nonsense. Right now, he just wanted to understand what everyone was screaming about. His translator earpiece kept glitching, turning the emergency announcements into garbled static mixed with words that made no sense. Something about a breach. Something about Subject 47. Something about staying in designated safe zones. The recreation lounge had emptied in seconds when the alarm started. Daniel found himself alone, with half-finished games scattered across tables and a drink dispenser still humming in the corner. He grabbed his backpack and headed for what he assumed was the dormitory section. The station layout still confused him. Everything looked the same. Metal walls, harsh lighting, doors that opened with a hiss. He turned down a corridor that should have been sealed. The blast door hung halfway open, sparking slightly where the mechanism had jammed. Daniel squeezed through without thinking much about it. The academy had been running drills all week. Probably just another test to see how the new cadets handled stress. The hallway beyond was quieter. Empty. His footsteps echoed off the walls. Daniel relaxed slightly and checked his datapad for a map. The screen flickered with the same useless static as his earpiece. Fantastic. Lost in an alien space station during some kind of emergency drill. This would make a great story to tell the folks back home that a sound stopped him cold. Low and rumbling, like thunder rolling across a distant plain. But this was no storm. This was something alive. Something big. Something very close. Daniel turned slowly. At the far end of the corridor, where the lights flickered weakest, a shadow moved. Not just any shadow. This one had weight. Presence. The kind of mass that made the floor vibrate with each step. She emerged from the darkness like a nightmare given flesh. Golden bronze, fur matted with blood and chemicals. Shoulders broader than Daniel was tall. Paws the size of dinner plates. Each toe tipped with claws that scraped the metal floor. Her head was massive, shaped like the great cats from Earth, but larger. So much larger. Fangs showed between lips pulled back in pain or anger or both. This was Subject 47, the thing everyone was running from. The monster that had triggered station-wide lockdown. Daniel should have run. Every instinct screamed at him to turn and sprint back the way he came. But his legs wouldn't move. Not from fear paralysis. From something else. Something he recognized in the way she held herself. The creature was hurt, favoring her left rear leg. Multiple wounds on her shoulders leaked dark blood. Patches of fur missing where tranquilizer darts had torn free. One ear was shredded. Her breathing came in labored gasps. She wasn't hunting. She was fleeing. Their eyes met across the corridor. Hers were amber, like honey held up to sunlight. Intelligent eyes. Aware eyes. Scared eyes. Daniel made a choice that would either save his life or end it. He sat down right there on the floor, crossed his legs, set his backpack beside him, made himself small. Non threatening. The way you approach a frightened animal back home. The way his grandfather taught him to handle the aggressive dogs at the shelter where they volunteered. The creature stopped advancing. Her head tilted slightly. Confusion flickered across features built for killing. This prey was acting wrong. Prey ran. Prey screamed. Prey didn't sit down and stare calmly. Daniel kept his breathing steady. Slow in, slow out. He'd read somewhere that predators could sense fear through chemical signals. No idea if that worked across species, but it couldn't hurt to try. He started talking. Didn't matter what he said. The creature couldn't understand English anyway. The tone mattered more than the words. Hey there. Rough day, huh? Yeah, I can see that. Those look like they hurt. I bet they do. Must be scared. I would be too. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Nobody here is going to hurt you. Not while I'm around anyway. The creature took another step. Then another. Each movement careful. Testing. Her muscles rippled under that blood-stained fur. She could cross the distance between them in a heartbeat. Could tear him apart before he finished his next breath. Daniel kept talking, kept his hands visible and still. The creature was close enough now that he could smell her. Blood and chemicals and something else. Something wild and alive. Like the big cat enclosure at the zoo on a summer day, she lowered her head, brought that massive face level with his. Her breath washed over him, hot and heavy. Those amber eyes studied him with an intensity that felt almost human. Looking for something, evaluating, deciding. Daniel slowly reached into his backpack. The creature's lips pulled back, showing every razor tooth. He moved even slower, drew out his water container, the standard issue bottle they'd given him on day one. He sat on the floor between them, pushed it gently in her direction. The creature glanced at the bottle. Back at Daniel. Back at the bottle. She sniffed it carefully. Then her rough tongue lapped at the opening. She drank desperately, nearly crushing the bottle with one paw to hold it steady. Somewhere distant, alarms still screamed. Somewhere above them, security forces were probably mobilizing. Somewhere in the command center, someone was watching through security cameras and losing their mind. But here in this empty corridor, a human and a monster shared water in silence. Daniel smiled. That's better, isn't it? Now let's see what we could do about those wounds. Commander Yareth's 4 hands gripped the edges of the command console hard enough to leave dents. His compound eyes tracked every screen showing the corridor where human Cadet was currently sitting within biting distance of the most dangerous predator ever brought to Harmony Station. He's insane, someone whispered from the back of the command center. He's dead, another voice corrected. Just doesn't know it yet. Yareth said nothing. His species had spent millions of years as prey animals on their homeworld. Every instinct he possessed screamed at him to send in the kill team immediately. But something about the scene unfolding on the monitors made him pause. The human wasn't acting like prey. And more disturbing, Subject 47 wasn't acting like a predator. Down in the corridor, Daniel had torn his shirt into strips. The academy uniform was pretty cheap anyway. Not much loss. He worked slowly, keeping his movements predictable. The creature watched him with those unervingly intelligent eyes. She hadn't attacked yet. That had to count for something. Okay, so here's the thing, Daniel said, still maintaining his calm tone. Those wounds are going to get infected if we don't clean them. How about a basic first aid kit? Nothing fancy, but it might help. The creature tilted her head again. That same confused gesture, like she was trying to understand not just his words, but his entire existence. Why wasn't he running? Why was he helping? The questions were clear in her expression, even without shared language. Daniel opened his first aid kit. Standard issue for cadets. Meant for minor cuts and bruises. Not treating massive predators with tranquilizer dart wounds. He'd have to improvise. Story of his life, really. He held up an antiseptic white packet. Let her see it. Smell it. Then slowly, telegraphing every movement, he reached toward the wound on her shoulder. She growled, deep and resonant, a sound that vibrated in his chest cavity. Daniel froze. I know it's scary, but this will help. I promise. He stayed frozen, hand extended, waiting, letting her decide. The growl faded. She sniffed his hand. Then, in a gesture that made the command center collectively gasp, she leaned her shoulder toward him, permission granted. Daniel cleaned the wounds as gently as possible. Each touch made the creature flinch, but she held still. Trusted him. The word felt absurd given the circumstances, but there was no other way to describe it. This apex predator was trusting a human she'd met 10 minutes ago. You know what I think? Daniel said, working on the second wound. I think someone kept you locked up somewhere. I think they hurt you. I think you got scared and ran. And now everyone's treating you like the bad guy when really you're just trying to survive. The creature made a sound. Not a growl. Something else. Almost like a whimper. Daniel's heart broke a little. Whatever this being was, wherever she came from, she understood pain. She understood fear. That made her a person in his book, not a monster. He finished with the visible wounds and sat back. The creature studied him for a long moment. Then she did something that made absolutely no sense from a predator behavior standpoint. She lay down, right there on the cold metal floor, stretched out to her full impressive length. And she looked at him with an expression that clearly said, "Well, aren't you going to continue?" Daniel laughed. Couldn't help it. The sound startled them both. But then the creature made a noise that might have been her version of amusement. A deep rumbling purr that made the floor vibrate. "You're something else, you know that." Daniel moved closer. The creature's tail swished once. Not aggressive. More like a cat back home, showing contentment. He'd grown up with cats. Big, small, and everything in between. His mom ran a rescue. He'd seen every type of feline behavior imaginable. This creature, whatever species she belonged to, had the same basic body language, the same needs, the same desire for connection. Daniel found himself scratching behind her ears. The creature's eyes closed. That purring sound grew louder. He worked his way down her neck, along her spine, finding the spots that made her lean into his touch. Years of experience with Earth's cats translated across light years of evolution that in the command center. Dr. Nilera leaned forward. She was the station's xenopsychologist. A threen, which meant her people had evolved from pack hunters. She understood predator behavior better than most of the staff. "Commander," she said quietly, "I believe we're witnessing something unprecedented." "We're witnessing a cadet about to die," Yareth replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "No, we're witnessing first contact between predator species. Look at the human's body language. He's not afraid. He's communicating. And she's responding." Another officer spoke up. "The human must be using some kind of technology. Pheromones. Chemical manipulation." Dr. Nilera shook her head. "Humans don't have that technology. This is something else. Something we've never seen, because most species in the galaxy evolve as prey. We flee from predators. We contain them. We fear them. But humans evolved alongside predators. They learned to coexist." "That's impossible," someone said. "Then explain what you're watching." No one could. Down in the corridor, Daniel had progressed to rubbing the creature's belly. She'd rolled onto her side, exposing her most vulnerable area. Complete trust. He could feel old scars under the fur. Evidence of a hard life. Evidence of suffering. "Someone hurt you bad, didn't they?" Daniel said softly. "Someone took you from your home, kept you locked up, treated you like a thing instead of a person. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that happened to you." The creature opened one eye, looked at him, and in that look Daniel saw understanding. She knew he got it, knew he saw her as more than a monster. "My name's Daniel," he said. "Don't suppose you can tell me yours?" The creature made a sound, complex and multi-toned, impossible for human vocal cords to reproduce. But it was definitely a name. Her name. "Okay, I can't pronounce that. How about I call you Sereth?" "That work." Another purr, louder this time. Daniel took that as a yes. "Sereth it is then." 3 hours into the lockdown, Daniel's legs had gone numb. Sereth's head rested in his lap, her breathing deep and even. She'd finally fallen asleep, exhausted from pain and fear and whatever hell she'd escaped from. He didn't dare move. Didn't want to wake her. Besides, where would he go? The blast doors were sealed and armed security waited on the other side. His datapad had finally stopped glitching. The translator working properly now. He'd managed to access the station database using his cadet credentials. Probably wasn't supposed to be able to do that, but the Academy's security protocols were clearly more concerned with keeping Sereth contained than keeping students out of files. What he found made his blood boil. Subject 47. Designation only, no real name listed. Species, Ravashi from Char Prime. Classification, Apex Predator, Extreme Danger. Captured 3 years ago under Galactic Wildlife Protection Act. Reason, Sanctuary and Study of Endangered Species. That all sounded official and proper. Then Daniel kept reading. Housing, Isolation Cell 4B, dimensions 3 by 3 meters. For a creature that could stretch nearly 4 meters long. 3 years in a cage barely big enough to turn around in. Feeding schedule, nutrient paste, twice daily. No environmental enrichment listed. No socialización. No contact with any beings except researchers in full protective gear. The medical logs were worse. Monthly blood draws. Tissue samples. dental examinations performed under full sedation, tests for aggression response, pain tolerance, fear conditioning. That last one made Daniel's stomach turn. They'd been deliberately scaring her, measuring how much trauma it took to break her. There were notes about her behavior. Increasing signs of psychological distress, depression, repetitive movements, self-harm. The researchers documented it all with clinical detachment. Subject exhibits stress behaviors. Subject resistance to handling procedures increased. Subject becoming unmanageable. And oh kidding, she became unmanageable. They tortured her for 3 years and wondered why she stopped cooperating. The escape happened during a routine cage cleaning. Sareth had never shown aggression towards staff before. Then today, when they opened the door, she'd exploded outward, knocked 2 guards unconscious, destroyed 3 security drones, made it halfway across the station before they sealed the sections and trapped her in this corridor. With him, Daniel looked down at the sleeping predator using his lap as a pillow. This wasn't a monster. This was a person who'd been pushed past her breaking point. A person who'd lost everything and was fighting to survive the only way she knew how. His communicator crackled. He'd forgotten he even had it. The voice that came through was stiff, formal, probably some high-ranking officer prepared to order him around. Cadet Reed, this is Station Director Home. You need to evacuate that corridor immediately. We're authorized to use lethal force on Subject 47. Daniel's hand moved to the communicator before his brain caught up with his mouth. No, silence. Long enough that he thought the connection died. Then, excuse me. I said no. You're not killing her. Cadet, that creature is extremely dangerous. It has already injured multiple personnel. We cannot allow it to remain alive and risk further casualties. Daniel's voice was steel. She is a person. Her name is Sareth. And she only hurt people because you people hurt her first. More silence. Daniel heard muffled voices in the background. People arguing. He didn't care. He kept his hand on Sareth's head, scratching gently behind her ear. She shifted in her sleep, pressing closer to him. Cadet Reed. A new voice. Female. Calmer. My name is Dr. Nilera. I'm a station psychologist. I've been watching you with Subject 47. What you've accomplished is remarkable, but we need to think about everyone's safety, including yours. Then stop calling her Subject 47. Stop treating her like a lab experiment. She's sapient. I've seen it in her eyes. She understands way more than your files give her credit for. Even if that's true, we can't just release her. The legal complications alone, I don't care about legal complications. Daniel surprised himself with the anger in his voice. I care that you people kidnapped her from her home, locked her in a cage for 3 years, ran experiments on her like she was property. Then when she finally fought back, you decided the easiest solution was to kill her. It's not that simple. Yeah, actually it is. You screwed up. Your research program screwed up, and now you want to cover it up by eliminating the evidence. Well, guess what? I'm not moving. You want to shoot her? You'll have to shoot through me first. Sareth stirred at his raised voice. Those amber eyes opened, immediately alert. Daniel forced himself to calm down, resumed his gentle scratching. She relaxed again but stayed awake, watching him. Doctor. Nilera spoke again. Daniel, may I call you Daniel? I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. The treatment Subject 47 received was unacceptable. I've been filing complaints about the research wing for months. But threatening to die for a creature you met a few hours ago isn't rational. Rational? Daniel laughed without humor. Doc, I'm from Earth. We're the planet where people run into burning buildings to save dogs. Where we adopt apex predators as pets. Where we cry over animals we've never met dying in movies. Dying to protect someone who can't protect themselves? That's the most human thing possible. He's right. A new voice joined the channel. Older. Male. This is Ambassador Chun, representing Earth in the Galactic Defense Coalition. Cadet Reed's behavior, while unorthodox, aligns with core human values. If the station proceeds with lethal force, Earth will file formal protests. We'll also demand investigation into all research wing activities. Director Home came back on. He sounded tired. This is a disaster. Only if you make it one, Daniel said. Give her a chance. Let me bring her somewhere safe. Somewhere better than that cage you kept her in. I'll take full responsibility. If she attacks anyone, she won't. Not if people stop treating her like a threat. Long pause. Daniel could practically hear calculations happening. Political considerations. Legal ramifications. Public relations nightmares. Finally, you have one chance, Cadet. 1. Bring her to Base 7. We've cleared a cargo space. If this goes wrong, if anyone gets hurt, the consequences will be severe. Understood. The channel closed. Daniel looked at Sareth. She looked back. Understanding passed between them without words. They both knew the stakes. They both knew the risk. Ready to trust me one more time? Daniel asked. Sareth stood. Stretched. Nodded once. Together they walked toward whatever came next. The blast door opened with a hiss that made every guard in the corridor flinch. Weapons raised. Targeting lasers painted red dots across the opening. Daniel stepped through first, one hand resting on Sareth's shoulder. She followed so close behind that he could feel her breath on his neck. 50 meters to Base 7. Might as well have been 50 kilometers. Guards lined both sides of the corridor. Vantori in full combat armor. Threen with plasma rifles. A few species Daniel didn't recognize, all armed to the teeth. Every weapon tracked Sareth's movement. Every finger rested on a trigger. One wrong move, and they'd both be vapor. Daniel kept walking. Steady pace. Not too fast. Not too slow. He talked the whole way, keeping his voice calm. Didn't matter what he said. Sareth couldn't understand most of it anyway. The tone mattered. The connection mattered. You're doing great. Just keep moving. Don't look at them. Look at me. That's it. Nice and easy. Sareth's claws clicked against the metal floor. Each step deliberate. Controlled. Her muscles were tense under his hand, but she held herself together. Showed more restraint than half the guards who looked ready to panic fire at any moment. Halfway down the corridor, a young Vantori guard shifted his stance. His plasma rifle swung slightly toward them. Sareth's lips pulled back, showing teeth. A warning, not an attack, just a reminder that she could defend herself if needed. The guard's finger tightened on the trigger. Stand down. Commander Yareth's voice barked over the speakers. All personnel, stand down. Nobody fires unless I give the order. The guard lowered his weapon. Barely. Daniel kept walking. His heart hammered, but he didn't let it show. Couldn't let it show. Fear was contagious. If he panicked, Sareth would panic. If Sareth panicked, people would die. They passed rows of windows where other cadets watched. Some pressed their faces against the glass. Others kept their distance, ready to run. Daniel recognized a few from his orientation group. They'd seemed friendly enough before. Now, they looked at him like he'd grown a second head. Or maybe like he was already dead. Almost there, Daniel said. Base 7 was visible now. The door stood open. Inside, he could see the space they prepared. Much larger than the corridor. Not ideal, but better than that cage. Just a bit further. Sareth made a low sound. Not quite a growl. More like she was asking a question. Daniel glanced at her. Those amber eyes met his. Trust and uncertainty mixed together. I know you're scared. But I promise it'll be okay. I won't let them hurt you again. Empty promise, maybe. He was one human cadet with exactly zero authority and even less experience. But sometimes all you could offer was your word and hope it meant something. They reached Base 7. Daniel stepped inside. Sareth hesitated at the threshold. Every instinct probably screamed trap. Enclosed space. Unknown territory. No escape route. All the hallmarks of danger. Daniel turned to face her. Put himself between her and the guards. Hey, look at me. Right here. You've trusted me this far. Trust me a little longer. Sareth stared at him. At the space beyond. At the guards still holding weapons. Decision time. Fight or flight or faith. She stepped inside. The door sealed immediately. Magnetic locks engaged with a heavy clunk. They were contained. Safe. Trapped. Depending on your perspective. Daniel let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Sareth shook herself like a wet dog throwing off water. Then she started exploring the space. Sniffing corners. Testing walls with her paws. searching for exits that didn't exist. The bay was meant for cargo, not living beings. But someone had tried to make it comfortable. Padded flooring in one corner. A water dispenser attached to the wall. Food containers stacked nearby. Even some kind of scratching post, though it looked comically small compared to Sereth's size. IT was still a prison. Bigger than before. Nicer than before. But still a cage. Sereth seemed to realize this at the same moment. She stopped exploring. Sat down in the middle of the floor. Her tail wrapped around her body. Every line of her posture screamed defeat. Daniel sat beside her. Didn't say anything. Sometimes there was nothing to say. Sometimes you just had to be present. That a screen flickered to life on the wall. Director Holm appeared, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last 4 hours. Cadet read. The board will convene tomorrow to determine next steps. For now, you're confined to Base 7 with Subject 47. Her name is Sereth. With Sereth, Holm corrected himself, though he looked pained doing it. Food will be delivered. Medical staff will check on you both. Try to rest. The screen went dark. Daniel leaned back against Sereth's side. She was warm, solid, real. 3 hours ago, he didn't know she existed. Now he'd risked everything for her. Funny how life worked. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I know this isn't freedom, but it's better than before. And I'm going to make sure it gets even better. Somehow, Sereth turned her head, looked at him with those two intelligent eyes. Then she did something that made Daniel's chest tighten. She gently headbutted him, the way cats did when they were showing affection. The way his old tabby used to do when Daniel came home from school. Universal language. Gratitude without words. Daniel wrapped his arms around her neck, buried his face in her fur. She smelled like blood and chemicals and fear. But underneath all that was something else. Something wild and alive and worth fighting for. We're going to get through this, he whispered. Both of us. Together. Outside Base 7, Commander Yareth watched the monitors. Dr. Nilera stood beside him, taking notes on her datapad. What do you think? Yareth asked. I think that human just rewrote our understanding of predator behavior. Is that a good thing? Dr. Nilera smiled. Ask me tomorrow, after we see if they both survive the night. But in Base 7, Daniel and Sereth had already fallen asleep. Her body curled protectively around his smaller form. His hand resting on her paw. Two predators from different worlds finding safety in each other. The galaxy was about to learn something new about Earth's strangest export. Humans didn't just survive alongside predators. They befriended them. And that changed everything. The disciplinary board consisted of 7 members representing different species and departments. They sat in a semicircle, elevated above where Daniel stood. Classic intimidation setup. He'd seen enough movies to recognize the power play. Daniel wore his cadet uniform, freshly cleaned. No bloodstains, no tears. Looking as professional as possible when you were facing possible expulsion for befriending a creature everyone else considered deadly. Sereth was confined to Base 7 during the hearing. Daniel hated leaving her alone, but didn't have a choice. She'd pressed her face against the observation window when he left. Made that questioning sound again. He'd promised to come back. Hoped he could keep that promise. Cadet Daniel Reed. Director Holm spoke first. He looked even worse than yesterday. Probably hadn't slept. You stand accused of violating lockdown protocols, disobeying direct orders, and endangering station personnel. How do you plead? Guilty to the first 2. Not guilty to the last one. Murmurs around the room. One board member, a threen with silver scales, leaned forward. You don't believe you endangered anyone? No, ma'am. Sereth never attacked anyone who wasn't actively trying to hurt her. She was defending herself. That's not the same as being dangerous. She injured guards, destroyed property, after being tortured for 3 years. I read the files. What happened to her was illegal under your own Galactic Wildlife Protection Act. The research wing violated every protocol. Sereth was the victim, not the criminal. More murmurs. Louder this time. Director Holm raised a hand for silence. The research wing is under separate investigation. We're here to discuss your actions. My actions save lives. Daniel kept his voice level, respectful but firm. If I hadn't intervened, you would have killed Sereth. then the truth about the research wing would have died with her. Instead, she's alive. Nobody else got hurt. And now we can actually fix the problems instead of covering them up. A Vantori board member spoke up. His voice carried multiple harmonics. Made Daniel's teeth ache. You risked your life for a creature you just met. That shows poor judgment. Respectfully, sir, it shows human judgment. We don't abandon people just because they're different. We don't kill beings just because they scare us. That's not weakness. That's civilization. Pretty speech. The Threen again. But you're asking us to believe you had noble intentions. Maybe you just wanted attention. To be the hero. Daniel felt anger flare, but pushed it down. You watched the footage. Does it look like I wanted attention? I sat on a floor for 3 hours, treating wounds and talking to someone who couldn't understand me. I did it because it was right. Because Sareth needed help and nobody else was offering. Dr. Nalera entered the room, carrying a datapad. She wasn't on the board, but had been called as an expert witness. If I may address the board? Home nodded. She brought up holographic displays showing the security footage, annotated with her observations. I've studied this interaction extensively. What Cadet Reed accomplished should be impossible according to our understanding of predator behavior. He recognized patterns we've never documented. He used techniques we don't teach. And he achieved results that our entire security force with advanced weapons couldn't match. Because he's human, someone muttered. Exactly because he's human. Dr. Nilera enlarged a frame, showing Daniel scratching Sareth's ears. Earth is unique in the galaxy. Most species evolved as prey or without significant predator presence. Humans avulva aluncida apax predatos. They didn't just survive. They learned to coexist, to cooperate. Some even domesticated predators as companions. That's different. Those were animals. Is it different? Dr. Nilera pulled up another image. Sareth's eyes, captured in perfect detail. Look at this. Really look. I've spent 2 decades studying xenopsychology. Those eyes show sapient thought, self-awareness, emotional complexity. Sareth isn't an animal. She's a person. Cadet Reed saw that immediately. The rest of us were too afraid to look. The room fell silent. Daniel watched board members study the image. Saw some of them actually seeing Sareth for the first time. Not as a threat. As a being. Commander Yareth stood from his seat in the observation area. Permission to speak? Home looked surprised, but nodded. I've commanded security for 15 years. I've handled hundreds of dangerous situations. By every protocol, every regulation, every standard procedure, I should have ordered lethal force immediately. Subject 47 was an active threat. She'd already injured personnel. The risk was too high. He paused, for hands clasped behind his back. But Cadet Reed showed me something I'd forgotten. Protocols exist to protect people. All people. Not just the ones we find easy to understand. Sareth is a person. She deserved a chance. Reed gave her that chance when the rest of us were too frightened to try. So you support his actions? The Threen asked. I support his results. Nobody died. Nobody else got hurt. And we discovered systematic abuse in our research wing. If Reed had followed orders, we would have killed an innocent being to cover up crimes. That's not justice. That's cowardice. More silence. Longer this time. Board members exchanged looks. Some reached for their datapads. Others stared at the frozen image of Sareth's eyes. Finally, Holmes spoke. Cadet Reed, your methods were unorthodox. You violated direct orders. You put yourself at enormous risk. Under normal circumstances, that would mean immediate expulsion. Daniel's heart sank. However, Holmes continued, these are not normal circumstances. You exposed serious ethical violations. You prevented what would have been a wrongful execution. And you demonstrated skills we didn't know were possible. The board has reached a decision. He paused for effect. Daniel wanted to throw something. You will receive an official reprimand for violating lockdown protocols. This will remain on your record. You will also be assigned additional duties helping redesign our xenobiology safety standards. And finally, you will be responsible for Sareth's continued care and integration. It took a moment for the words to register. Integration? Sareth cannot return to her homeworld. She's been away too long. But she also cannot remain in containment. We're offering her a position in our security training program. If she accepts, if you think she's capable, she's capable. Daniel didn't hesitate. She's more than capable. Then make it work. Both of you. Show us that cooperation between predator species is possible. Teach us what humans apparently know instinctively. The board dismissed him. Daniel walked out feeling like he could float. Maybe fly. He headed straight for Base 7. Sarith was waiting at the window, pressed against the glass. When she saw him, her entire body language changed. Relief. Joy. That rumbling purr loud enough to hear through reinforced walls. Daniel placed his hand against the glass. Sarith pressed her paw against the same spot. Different worlds. Different species. Same understanding. We won, Daniel said. Knew she couldn't hear him through the door. Said it anyway. We actually won. 6 months changed everything. The training yard was busy with afternoon drills. Cadets from a dozen species practiced combat formations, tactical responses, emergency procedures. Standard academy curriculum. But today something different caught everyone's attention. Sarith moved through the obstacle course like liquid gold. Over walls, under barriers, through tight spaces that shouldn't fit something her size. She'd lost weight since her rescue. Healthy weight. The kind that came from exercise and proper nutrition instead of stress and starvation. Her first shone in the artificial sunlight. Wounds healed to barely visible scars. Daniel watched from the sidelines, datapad in hand, tracking her time. She was fast. Faster than any cadet currently enrolled. Faster than most instructors. The course record had stood for 3 years. Sarith beat it by 15 seconds. She crossed the finish line and immediately looked for him. Found in the crowd. That rumble of satisfaction carried across the yard. Several cadets who would have run screaming 6 months ago now smiled at the sound. Show off, Daniel called out. Sarith trotted over. She'd been fitted with a translator collar after the hearing. Took a few weeks to calibrate properly. Learning to use it took even longer. But now she could actually communicate beyond body language and context clues. You said beat the record. I beat the record. Her voice came out synthesized through the collar. Slightly mechanical, but unmistakably hers. Problem? No problem. I'm impressed. Maybe a little worried you're making me look bad. You make yourself look bad. I just expose it. Daniel laughed. Their banter had become familiar around the academy. Other cadets didn't understand it at first. Thought maybe Sarith was being aggressive. Took time to realize this was how they showed affection. Teasing between friends that a small Threen cadet approached nervously. Pip. She'd been the second person after Daniel to actually talk to Sarith instead of just staring. Now, they were study partners. Sort of. Pip helped Sarith with galactic law. Sarith helped Pip with physical training. That was amazing, Pip said, her translator rendering the high-pitched chirps into standard language. How did you take that corner so fast? Physics. Sarith lowered herself so they were at eye level. She'd learned that small beings found it less intimidating. Use momentum. Don't fight it. Let your body flow with the movement. Can you show me? After class. We'll practice. Pip bounced with excitement. Literally. Her species did that. She rushed off to tell her friends that Sarith was going to teach her personally. Daniel shook his head. Remember when everyone was terrified of you? I remember when you were the only one not terrified. Sarith's tail swished. Content. Strange how much changes. It really was strange. The research wing had been completely shut down after the investigation. 3 directors faced criminal charges. New protocols were established for all xenobiology programs across the galaxy. Sarith's case became the standard example of what not to do. More importantly, it opened conversations about how the galaxy treated predator species. Turned out Sarith wasn't the only one facing prejudice. Just the most dramatic case. Now there were support groups, advocacy organizations, legal protections that didn't exist before Commander Yareth approached. He'd become something like a mentor to both of them. Funny how facing death together built relationships. Good run, Sarith. Daniel, you're both wanted in Base 7. They exchanged glances. Base 7 had been converted into their quarters. Larger than standard cadet housing. Modified for Sarith's needs. It was home now. But being summoned there by name usually meant something official. They arrived to find Dr. Nilera waiting with two other beings. One wore coalition diplomatic insignia. The other had Ravashi features. Male, smaller than Sereth, but unmistakably same species. Sereth froze. Made a sound Daniel had never heard before. High-pitched, questioning. The male Ravashi responded in kind. And they were both making those sounds. Complex harmonics. Their actual language. The diplomat stepped forward. Cadet read. I am Ambassador Lorn. This is Kevith, representative from Char Prime. He's been searching for someone. Kevith spoke through his own translator. Sereth, daughter of Mareth. Missing 3 years. Declared dead. Family mourned. Then we heard stories. Human and Ravashi at Defense Academy. Had to see. Had to know. Sereth's voice came out barely audible. Uncle, yes, little hunter. It's me. They touched foreheads. Traditional Ravashi greeting for family. Sereth's whole body shook. Daniel realized she was crying. Didn't know her species could cry. Learn something new every day. Kevith looked at Daniel. You saved her. Clan owes debt beyond words. Beyond action. You gave us back what was lost. I just saw someone who needed help. Daniel felt uncomfortable with the praise. Anyone would have done the same. No, most would not. Most did not. You did. That matters. Ambassador Lorne cleared his throat. We have a proposal. Char Prime wants to establish formal relations with Earth. Cultural exchange. Military cooperation. Trade agreements. Given your unique partnership, we'd like you both to serve as liaisons. After graduation, of course. Daniel looked at Sereth. She looked back. That same understanding that existed from their first meeting in the corridor. What do you think? He asked. I think we make good team. Sereth bumped his shoulder with her massive head. Gentle despite the size difference. I think Galaxy needs more beings who see persons instead of monsters. Yeah, I think so too. 1 year later, Daniel and Sereth stood on the bridge of the Coalition vessel Harmony. Not as cadets, as full officers. First human-Ravashi partnership in galactic history. First of many, if their mission succeeded. They were heading for a colony world. Prey species and predator species forced to share resources. Tensions running high. Violence threatened. Traditional diplomats couldn't make progress. So they sent Daniel and Sereth. The human who befriended a monster. The Ravashi who learned to trust. Ready for this? Daniel asked. Sereth's purr rumbled through the deck plating. With you? Always. Outside the viewports, stars streaked past. Behind them, Harmony Station where their story began. Ahead, a galaxy learning new lessons about fear and friendship. About seeing past instinct to recognize people. Daniel rested his hand on Sereth's shoulder. Right where he'd first touched her in that locked corridor. Where trust began, some bonds transcended species. Transcended evolution. Transcended the distance between worlds. All it took was one person brave enough to sit down with a monster and see the person underneath. All it took was one monster brave enough to believe that person meant no harm. Everything else followed from there.